All right, guys, this is an interesting video that I wanted to share with you. Could the Constitution bar Trump from running again? Now, let me just say up front, this is almost certainly not going to happen. If Trump wants to run again, it is overwhelmingly likely he will run again if he survives that long, okay? But in terms of the actual legal argument being made here, I find this kind of interesting because it's kind of persuasive. Let's watch.
The long-running political drama called Catch Trump If You Can. The long-running political drama called Catch Trump If You Can is still rolling along. This time, the Tom Hanks character is the entire January 6th committee, who in a federal court filing laid out a blueprint to catch Trump. Evidence that the former president and his pals were in on a criminal conspiracy by trying to block the certification of the 2020 election. Now, I'll repeat that in case you missed it. Criminal conspiracy. Now, that's a pretty big deal because it's the first time the committee laid out a possible criminal case against Trump. Now, you might be having a hard time getting excited about this new development after spending years watching Trump dodge all the hammers that were supposed to land on him. The Mueller report.
Yeah, like that's the thing that everybody needs to realize, is that this happened like 12 other times. Everybody's like, oh, we're going to get him, we're going to get him, we're going to get him. And then they just didn't get him. You know, it's that, what was that great old tweet that was talking about how, let's see old Donnie wiggle his way out of this one. And then he does. And it's like, well, nevertheless, it happens every time. So again, I don't think this is actually going to, this isn't going to happen. If he wants to run, he's going to be able to run. He's apparently cucked the entire Republican Party and the entire political system. That's what he does. He just alphas his way through the whole shit. But wait until you hear the legal case.
The 25th Amendment, getting impeached twice.
Bye-bye.
The big tools that were supposed to stop him became famous for not doing that. And that's opened up an anxiety a lot of us didn't really have until the last few years. What's there to defend the Constitution if the people who swore to do just that don't? Well, there is one big red button you might not have heard of. It's tucked way down in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. It's the rarely used Section 3, which disqualifies any office holder who took an oath to protect the Constitution and then, quote, engaged in insurrection or rebellion. It was quoted in last year's articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, and now it's being tested in an actual court of law. But against this guy, North Carolina Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn, a Trump superfan who was really well prepared for insurrections.
Congressmen are, I wish this was under better circumstances. First of all, are you safe?
Charlie, I'm safe. Yes, as you know, I believe in the Second Amendment as well as a lot of other members. So we are armed. We're in a safe location. We can't disclose where. Obviously, having the wheelchair, I'm able to carry multiple weapons at one time.
A legal team led by a nonprofit advocacy group is actually using Section 3 to try to keep Cawthorn's name off the ballot in November for spurring on the January 6 rioters.
But my friends, the Democrats, with all the fraud they have done in this election, the Republicans hiding and not fighting, they are trying to silence your voice.
Now, Cawthorn didn't actually get convicted of anything, but Section 3 doesn't require a guilty verdict to disqualify a candidate. Plus,
doesn't have to be guilty in a court of law in order to use it to exercise the power. Granted. Wow. So look, at the plain face reading of what it says about insurrection and rebellion, there is that clip of Trump very clearly saying, we all need to go to the Capitol, let's go to the Capitol. And then they went to the Capitol and, the infamous riot broke out. So I guess then it'll hinge on what's the legal definition of an insurrection? And, does it meet that? Is there even a legal definition of an insurrection? And does it have to succeed in order for it to be an insurrection? Does there have to be planning to make it with the potential of succeeding? Because obviously there wasn't high-level planning. There's a bunch of fucking idiots just storming the Capitol. So I don't know, but in terms of the plain-face reading of the Constitution and the fact that you don't need a guilty verdict in order to exercise it, that seems to me like it would be fair. It would be fair game to be like, you can't run again. By the way, they also could have, in the wake of January 6th, they could have passed a law saying that the president, that Trump can't run again because of how he, because of what he said on that day and how he was egging them on originally. And then later on, he spoke out of both sides of his mouth and, to go home and everything and trying to cover his ass a little bit. But beforehand, it was very clear what he was in favor of. And when he was MIA for a while, it was very clear he was watching this and seeing, where's this going to go? So anyway, let's watch the rest of this.
Top dogs like Senator Mitch McConnell and Trump's own lawyer called what happened that day an insurrection, which could strengthen the case. Now, the capital B but here is what isn't spelled out in that amendment. Like, what counts as engaging in an insurrection and who gets to disqualify people from holding office?
Right, yeah.
Most of the examples we have for applying that provision are from the last time we used the words insurrection and president in the same sentence, when there was a president of the Confederacy.
There were many officials who were...
that's why you feel they're not going to get him on this shit. They're not going to get him on this shit because then the traditionalists will argue like, no, an insurrection means you have to actually like declare civil war. It can't be like hinting at a coup and then it fails miserably, So, and I bet all the judges in the country are going to be like, come on, don't blow this out of proportion. But look, at the same time, the facts on paper were pretty damning, pretty devastating. The guy was egging them on and they were trying to take over the government, even though they were a bunch of idiots and they couldn't even get close. So they ain't going to do this shit. They're not going to do this shit. But the legal case is fascinating to me, and I didn't know that this legal case existed.
Moved from office in the States after the Civil War ended because they were the same officials who had been in office during the Confederacy. Also, there were people who were excluded from, say, becoming members of Congress because they had been participants in the Confederacy. Right. Some people received amnesty because they were helping the Union or were basically doing things to bring about reconciliation. At a certain point, though, that kind of became either a situation of political favoritism or there was just a thought that maybe we should just have a general law that decided who should get amnesty and who shouldn't.
That led to another historical super deep cut, the Amnesty Act of 1872. Basically, that act limited Section 3 to lawmakers who served just before and during the Civil War and then went on to try to destroy the country. But does it forgive the insurrectionists of the future? Madison Cawthorn's lawyer argued that it does. And it might sound wild, but a federal Trump-appointed judge thought it was a good enough reason to block the challenge to Cawthorn's candidacy. It's under appeal. Now, Cawthorn's case isn't only a big deal because of what he said. North Carolina is the one state where the burden of proof lies on the office seeker if someone has a, quote, reasonable suspicion or belief that they're unqualified. That makes it a decent test site for a potential Section 3 challenge to other reps from other states, ones who might have also played a role in January 6th, and also to Donald Trump if he decides to run again. By saying he engaged in a criminal conspiracy, the House committee could also be laying a blueprint to disqualify him if he does run again. That's a strategy that could leave the Supreme Court deciding if the rule could be used in a way that's so unexpected that even its authors didn't contemplate it would ever be used on a president.
Yeah, and if it goes to the Supreme Court, what's going to happen? We all know what's going to happen. They're going to be like, get this shit out of here. He can run again. So old Donnie's going to wiggle his way out of this one too, as he always does. But it is interesting that there's a legal case that's there. But just like all the other tools that could have effectively been used against Trump for his various high crimes and misdemeanors, none of them are used. I mean, look, he clearly violated the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution with his businesses while he was president. He was profiting, and foreign governments were funneling him money, like through his DC hotel, as he was giving Saudi Arabia multi-billion-dollar weapons contracts. Clear violation of the Emoluments Clause. And guess what? Nothing happened. He got away with it. But, you could argue the same thing. The Clinton Foundation, that was obviously this big money laundering scheme where, foreign governments buy favors and it was just a corrupt cesspool. But they got away with that too. So they all seem to get away with it because there's not as much accountability for the wealthy. The best hope on getting Trump on anything is on his financial crimes. And even that, it looks like now there's a fall guy who's going to take the fall for him with his various financial crimes, and he's going to get away on that front too. So this dude has dodged accountability 1,000 ways to Sunday, and I don't think this is going to be a situation where they're going to interpret the Constitution, in my opinion, in a reasonable way and say, look, you can't run again. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.